All right, so before we go on to chapter 5, we're going to review algebraic fractions. And algebraic fractions are just fractions that have variables in them, right? They'll have an x or a y or some variable in them. And the variable is just it's a stand-in for a number. It's just a number that we don't know yet. So we can combine algebraic fractions in the same way that we combine just regular numeric fractions. So it's important to recall the rules for combining fractions, right? We can reduce fractions, we can add fractions with a common denominator, we can add fractions with different denominators, we can multiply fractions, we can divide fractions. All right, so this is just a summary of the rules for working with fractions, and we're going to use those skills um, to work with algebraic fractions. All right, so let's start here with, let me scroll up just a hair, reducing algebraic fractions. Okay, so if you remember, we reduce algebraic fractions by canceling common factors. We look for common factors that we can cancel. So what we need to do when we have an algebraic fraction, if we want to reduce it, we need to factor it. Okay, so we need to factor the numerator and factor the denominator. So for example, this example 1, let's take a look at this. Well, we can see the numerator has a common factor of 7, right? So I would say the first thing we want to do is factor out a 7, right? And then we have x squared minus 4 left. And then the denominator is a polynomial, it's a quadratic, and we can factor that too, right? We can factor that into, it looks like 3 times 2 is 6, right? If I make it x minus 3 and x plus 2, that should work, right? And then the middle term will add to a negative 1x. All right, so we can factor this a little more. That numerator has an x squared minus 4 in it. And if you recall, that's a difference of 2 squares, right? Because 4 is 2 squared. And I can factor a difference of 2 squares into, in this case, x plus 2 and x minus 2. If you don't remember it, you can treat it as a quadratic with a 0x in the middle. And then you can factor it like a regular quadratic. All right, so let's just copy down the denominator, x plus 2. And now you can see there's a common factor of x plus 2 in the numerator and the denominator. Okay, so we're going to cancel the x plus 2. And it looks like that's really all I can cancel. So let's write down what we have left. We have 7 times x minus 2 in the numerator all over x minus 3 in the denominator. Okay, so remember, you can only cancel common factors. You cannot cancel terms. I could imagine someone looking at this and say, well, wait, they got an x and an x. Could we cancel that? No. It has to be a common factor. There's 2 factors in the numerator. 7 times this whole quantity, x minus 2. This whole quantity, x minus 2, is a factor. And the denominator has just one factor of x minus 3. And I guess I drew parentheses. I don't need the parentheses there, so I'm gonna take them out because that's probably more typical of what you would see. All right, so let's do the same thing for this. To reduce fractions, we have to factor the numerator and factor the denominator and look for common factors. So I'm seeing a factor of x in the numerator, and then if I factor out an x, let me just write it up here. X squared minus 4x plus 4. That's what I would have left if I just factor out the x. And I can see then that is a quadratic that I can factor. And it looks like that's going to factor into x minus 2 and x minus 2. So it's x minus 2 squared. All right. And then the denominator has a common factor of 2. So I'm going to take out that 2, and we'll have x minus 2. All right. So in the numerator, we have x times x minus 2 times x minus 2. That's what the x minus 2 squared is. In the denominator, we have 2 times x minus 2. So you can see I have a common factor of x minus 2. So I'm going to cancel one of those factors. Now I'm only going to cancel one, right? This is the same as x minus 2 times x minus 2. So I can only cancel one of them. And then let's see what we have left. Let's write down, we have x, and then we have still one of these x minus 2's in the numerator. And then we just have a 2 in the denominator. Okay, so there you go. There's our fraction in lowest terms. All right, now this next one is one that a lot of people get messed up on. I've seen it many, many, many times. People want to cancel those x squareds. Cancel this x squared. No, 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 no. Don't do that. Oops, went a little too far here. You cannot cancel those because they are not common factors. You can only cancel common factors. All right, so we have to factor the numerator and factor the denominator. Now there's really nothing I can do. I could write it as x times x, but it's x squared in the numerator, and then I can factor out a common factor of x in the denominator, unless with x minus 1. All right, and now you can see we have a factor of x in the denominator, and we have 2 factors of x in the numerator. All right, so I'm just going to cancel one of them. So what I have left is x in the, just x in the numerator, right? And then over x minus 1. All right, that's it. And don't go any farther, all right? These x's do not cancel. It's just x over x minus 1. You're done. There's no more common factors, right? The denominator has 2 terms, x and x minus 1. The numerator has 1 term, just x, but we can't cancel common terms, only common factors, all right? So be very careful. All right, so here we have a couple of quadratics. We got to factor these 2 quadratics, and the numerator looks a little messy. So I think I'm just going to factor this numerator separately, all right? So I'm going to write 3x squared, and then I'm going to split the middle term. So 3 times negative 5 is a negative 15. So I got to think of factors of negative 15 that add to 2. So, or negative 2. So it looks like minus 5x and then plus 3x is how I want to split that middle term. And then I have a minus 5. All right, I'm just going to work with the numerator right now because I don't want to have to carry that denominator every time. It's kind of messy. I don't have to rewrite the whole thing every time. I'm just going to factor the numerator first. All right, so what do we got? We're going to factor out, we're going to factor out an x in the numerator, and then we have an x of the first 2 terms. So we have 3x minus 5, and then the next 2 terms, there's no common factors, so I can factor out a 1. And I get 3x minus 5. All right, running up against the edge here. All right, so we have a common factor now of 3x minus 5, and when I factor that out, it's x plus 1 is what's left. All right, so now all I've done is factored the numerator. So let's write that down. So the numerator becomes 3x minus 5 times x plus 1. And the denominator is easy because it doesn't have a leading coefficient. So I just got to look for factors of 5 that add to 6. So I got x plus 5 times x plus 1. All right. Look for common factors. We have a common factor of x plus 1. We can cancel those, and then what we have left is just 3x minus 5 all over x plus 5. And that's it. You're done. Don't cancel the 5s. don't do anything. Don't do anything except cancel common factors. All right. So I guess that takes care of skill 1. So I'll meet you in the next video to talk about how to add fractions with a common denominator.